And when the next supplemental, due to arrive shortly, comes, the total will go to $700 billion. Much of this incremental cost will be borrowed, much of it from foreigners, which is why we've asked CBO to calculate the interest cost into its subsidy. As this next slide shows, we have provided more than $600 billion for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, $450 for Iraq alone, according to the Congressional Research Service. 2 days ago, the President submitted another war funding request totaling $46 billion. This increases his 2008 request to $196 billion and makes it the largest supplemental yet. I'll note the fact that strikes me about this particular chart is that as the war has gone on, instead of diminishing as we scored successes, the cost has actually gone up and up and up relentlessly each year, to the point where in the current fiscal year the cost is likely to be almost $200 billion. Now that's Iraq and Afghanistan. These increases, however, are attributable mostly to our commitments in Iraq. Of the $800 billion provided through 2008, $600 billion has gone to Iraq. Of the $196 billion requested for 2008, $160 billion will be used in Iraq. Beyond 2008, costs remain significant, but the administration has declined to give us a projection of those costs. The administration's budget in 2009 includes $50 billion as a placeholder, but it provides nothing, no projection, for 2010 and beyond. I wish that was likely, but I think it's unrealistic, particularly if we maintain forces in Afghanistan for some years to come, which we're likely to do, and even if combat operations ended tomorrow in Iraq. Significant reconstitution costs or reset costs would continue for several years to come. The Army and the Marine Corps, for example, stated more than a year ago that together they required $18 billion for reset each year. Reset is refurbishment, repair, and replacement of worn-out and damaged equipment. Each of the services together said that they required at least $18 billion a year. For each year, they remain engaged in a substantial way in Iraq, and for at least 2 to 3 years after operations in Iraq cease. The administration's latest supplemental indicates that these estimates are low. In the latest supplemental, the administration is asking $46 billion for reconstitution. Now, that's a broader, more inclusive term than reset, but that's reconstitution, resupplying ourselves with equipment that's been worn out, destroyed, or badly damaged. That's $10 billion more than was requested in 2007. While the administration has declined to supply estimates of future operations, the Congressional Budget Office, to its credit, has agreed to try. CBO's estimates rest on illustrative troop scenarios. In one, troop levels draw down to 75,000 in the Iraq and Afghanistan theaters by 2013, and they remain at that level, 75,000 troops in theater, not necessarily in country, through 2017. Under these assumptions, CBO projects the cost of military operations at $966 billion over the 10-year period, 2008 through 2017. And the cost of all operations, all economic aid, training indigenous forces is just over $1 trillion, $1,055 billion to be exact. Add this to the $604 billion already provided or appropriated through 2007, and cumulative costs by 2017 could be an astounding $1.7 trillion. While these costs are enormous, they omit any calculation of interest on the funding borrowed for war operations. And since the government has run substantial deficits from 2003 through 2007, and since future borrowing to some extent can be expected, interest needs to be imputed to the total cost of the war. This expense, as I said, has been previously omitted, but if included, according to CBO, interest cumulatively could be as much as $705 billion by 2017. Added to direct costs, to military operations, to aid, to training of indigenous forces, to reconstruction, and total costs could reach $2.4 trillion by 2017. This estimate, once again, assumes a scenario, the illustrative scenario, in which deployed forces in Iraq and Afghan theaters draw down to 75,000 by 2013. Now, one can quibble with these assumptions. I'd be the first to admit that, and with the methodology. But no one can contest the enormous cost incurred so far in Iraq or the likelihood that these costs will keep being incurred into the immediate future. The task of the Budget Committee is to balance priorities, provide for the common defense, but also provide for health care of our people, education of our young, transportation, Social Security, all within the context of a balanced budget. Understanding the cost of our deployments around the world is one step towards balancing choices while balancing the budget, which is why we asked for this study from CBO and why we're having this hearing today. Dr. Orzog, we appreciate you coming. Before turning to you for your statement, let me turn to Mr. Ryan of Wisconsin for any statement he would like to make.